As young girls, we women were trained to put others before ourselves. Couple that with some of the ways we learn to mask, and you end up with difficulty prioritizing yourself. In this episode, we'll unpack how this happens and what makes it such a huge problem for your business. And I'll share how you can start working with this today so you can keep this pattern from wrecking your business. Be sure to listen. Welcome to the Self Loved ADHD Woman's Way podcast. I'm your host, Jen Barnes. If you're an ADHD woman entrepreneur, ADHD adjacent, or ADHD ish, you've come to the right place. We'll dive deep into the unique challenges you face, from the inner turmoil to the outer obstacles. We'll blend neuroscience, IFS, and somatic healing and explore practical strategies to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship with ADHD with greater ease and effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. I'm excited to talk about what I see as a common first hurdle for entrepreneurship that a lot of women, ADHD women especially, have to overcome. And as a coach and in my other business, a psychotherapist, I have a front row seat to the lives of many. And something I hear a lot from women, or really rather a pattern I see, is that most women, especially moms, struggle to prioritize themselves, to put themselves first. And if this is you, you might have a priority list that sounds something like this: everyone else's needs, everyone else's wants, your needs, and then your wants maybe someday. Does that ring any bells? And if this is you, there's no judgment. Society has trained women to do this. In the words of author Soraya Kamali, who wrote Rage Becomes Her: The Power of Women's Anger, a book I highly recommend, but recommend you read it in small increments since it's valid anger. At any rate, we have what she calls the caring mandate placed upon us from a very young age. We were taught that we had to put everyone else before ourselves, that we had to care about everyone else, even random strangers, more than ourselves. And on top of that, with ADHD, a lot of us learn to mask through people pleasing, because people pleasing kept us out of trouble. And again, this was all subconscious. Like, we weren't little kids going, "Ooh, I know if I do this." We weren't intentionally trying to be manipulative. We were trying to get our needs met. And so a lot of us figured out that if we people pleased, if we said yes when we really didn't want to, but took care of others and did all that, that a few things happened. One, we kept people from getting mad at us as much. So then that felt good. And two, people liked us. And that wasn't always easy as ADHD girls for people to like us, especially if you have a hyperactive type of ADHD where maybe you're more loud and you do what neurotypical people would call interrupting. And it may have been hard to have people like you. And so when you people please, then people like you, not for the right reasons and not the right way, but that's for another episode. But our little selves figured that out. On top of it, when you people please, you're being helpful. And when we were helpful as young girls, we figured out that people gave us a little more grace. So when we had our ADHD moments, or our traits came up in a way that was bothersome to others, they gave us more grace. They were more patient with us because we were such good helpers, right? We were such good caretakers, if I dare say. So we come by this super honestly. This was how we were raised and how we figured out to navigate the world as young girls with ADHD. And here's the thing: that doesn't mean we have to continue living this way. Because the problem is, when you put yourself last, you also put your business last, both in the sense that you are the light of your business, You're the light that attracts people to you. And so if you're not caring for yourself, if your energy is off, then it's going to be harder to draw people to you. But also, because working on your business means dedicating time to do something you care about and value. And if you're not comfortable putting yourself first, if you don't value yourself, then it's going to be very hard to do that. And I get like sometimes after the birth of a baby, for example, you might need to work at a slower pace or even take some time off so you can be with your young child. And at the same time, I have witnessed many female entrepreneurs struggle to do things for their business because they are so busy caring for everyone else and overwhelmed by it and exhausted by it, which is not a great long term business model for sure. And if this is you, I feel you. I feel the exhaustion and even the struggle of prioritizing yourself. I call myself a recovering caretaker and recovering people pleaser because I used to do this. I used to put everyone else before myself. And while I get why I did that for some of the reasons I explained, it didn't work. It just left me burned out, exhausted, and really angry and resentful. And I certainly didn't enjoy my life. And I remember some of the shifts I had to make to do something different. And the thing is, this is the thing. I spent years and years trying to convince other women to set and maintain boundaries, teaching them the skills of how to do it, to delegate at home too, and to have frank conversations with loved ones about the inequity in their relationships. And yes, all of that is important. But my efforts didn't work out, at least not long term, right? I would have these conversations with clients and we would talk about setting the boundaries and they would be gung ho and they would maybe even set the boundaries, but they couldn't maintain them. And it wasn't until recently that I put it all together as to why. It's because many women, moms especially, and I'm not picking on moms, it's just that there's a societal expectations that moms do everything. I literally heard that from someone I know, their spouse was defining what a mom is, and the definition was moms do everything. I was like, wow, that's interesting. But so you come by this honestly, right? But women, especially moms, because of this, have limiting beliefs. You might have limiting beliefs that keep you coming back to continuing to put yourself last. You have these societal messages that you've internalized to believe that it has to be this way. And not to mention a lot of men's weaponized incompetence, probably subconscious for some of them, emotional immaturity, wounded masculine behaviors, and internalized patriarchy. But that's another story for a different day and maybe a whole separate podcast. But if this is you, it might sound something like this. Like if this is what you're struggling with, it might feel like you have to do things or no one else will. I hear that one a lot from women like, well, if I don't do the dishes, then no one will. And they'll just sit there for days and days. And I used to have the conversations about maybe just let it sit there for days and days. Maybe it'll get done. But that's not the problem. That's not the problem. Maybe you believe it's just easier and more efficient to do it yourself. Perhaps you don't want people to be mad at you or reject you for saying no or asking them to participate in the household. Maybe you don't want to be seen as a selfish bitch for putting yourself first. Because for sure, when women put ourselves first, there are people out there who are going to call us selfish and probably selfish bitches, which to that I say, bring it. Because why, just because we're born female, or if you're transgender, well, you didn't choose to be female, you were born female, you just didn't have the female genitalia. But at any rate, if you're a female now, why does that mean we don't get to have anything in the world that we want as a priority? That's insane. And and yet a lot of times people will see women as selfish for putting ourselves first. This also might look like you say yes, so people see you as helpful, kind of like we talked about earlier. Or you might, this is another one I see, especially with trauma survivors. You might feel like your kids need you 100% of the time and you want them to have happy, stress free childhoods, maybe trying to make up for your own negative growing up experiences. Or you might, bel you might believe that you're supposed to be of service or sacrifice what you want for the greater good. And if any of this is you, what's going on here is there are some underlying beliefs that are fueling this and thus fueling the behavior of putting yourself last, of having that priority list with you at the very bottom. And so it's not as simple as I initially thought as a younger therapist. Once I was a coach, I mostly realized this, I think. Maybe not the first year, but as a young therapist, I didn't get that. I didn't get that there is these underlying beliefs, these limiting beliefs, right? And limiting beliefs are things that you have come to believe are truth, when really it's just something that you came to believe based on your lived experiences that may or may not be true. And in a lot of cases, because limiting beliefs aren't working for you, those beliefs may have worked at one time, but are no longer effective now. Like maybe there's a part of you that learned to people please, like with me, and that may have been really effective growing up so you'd stay out of trouble, right? But if you're like me, you soon learned that then the people who liked you and the people who were in your life were all takers and you felt really lonely. Like you put more into friendships than they put into you. Or maybe you did this as a way to make yourself feel better about yourself because you felt so bad about your ADHD that subconsciously as a little girl, you figured, oh, I have to prove myself all the time. And so then that's why you're so helpful. Well, it stops working because then, yeah, you do all this stuff for others, but then you struggle anyway. And then the parts of you that were trying to help, it's actually hurting you because now you feel bad about yourself because you're not able to do the things you want to. So there's lots of ways that this can pan out. And the thing about moving beyond this is working with these limiting beliefs, working with the parts of you that believe that you have to come last, that believe in that priority list, that believe in some of those statements I said about having to be the one to do it or no one else will, about no one else knowing how to do it right, or whatever it is, right? Being seen as a selfish bitch. While some of that might be true, it also, there's beliefs that you have, that parts of you have that are trying to help you. So the way that you move beyond this is by working with these inner parts of you, by working with the parts and the beliefs that they hold. Because I'm going to tell you right now, there is no way, just because you're female, whatever that, however you're female, there's no way that means you shouldn't get to have just as much enjoyment in life as everybody else. And if you're like, sure, it does, then I want you to think about this. And we're starting to poke a little hole in the limiting belief. And it might mean that you're going to want to take some time after this episode and sit with the parts of you who are like, nope, nope, Jen, you're wrong, you're wrong. Because those parts are trying to protect you. They're trying to protect you because these beliefs have protected you in some way. It's just that these parts don't also see that these beliefs are now hurting you because they're getting in the way of you doing what you want to do, which is build and grow a business. And a lot of times, many women want to build and grow a business, not only to support themselves, but to help others. A lot of us, especially if you follow me, chances are the business that you have is one that helps others. So it's not all that selfish again. But even if it was just for yourself, you get to have what other humans get to have. And if you're not convinced of that, and you may not be convinced of that, I can't convince you of it. For sure not. Because there may be some deeper trauma that you hold that gave you the message that you're not good enough, that you're not worthwhile, that you don't deserve love and attention, certainly not your own. And in order to move beyond that, it's going to take some time to sit with these parts and really work with them on their concerns about what would happen if you stop doing this. Because what I wanted to say, and I paused for a little bit, I want to back up. But what I wanted to say is if you know a young girl in your life, so for me, it's my nieces, right? I've got two lovely nieces. And if you know a young girl in your life, would you tell her that because she's a girl, she doesn't get to be as happy as boys in the world? That she can't have everything she wants because she's a girl, and it's her job to take care of everyone else? I hope not. If you're listening to this, we've got bigger problems. If you're like, "Yep, absolutely," then either book a one-to-one coaching session with me, like, seriously, or maybe it might even be a therapist to help with some of that, but a lot of us are like, "Absolutely not. Of course, I wouldn't tell that to my little girl niece or my nieces aren't little girls anymore, but I wouldn't tell that to my nieces, or I wouldn't tell that to my daughter, or I wouldn't tell that to my neighbor kid who's a girl," right? Or even you might not tell other women, although sometimes women can be the harder policers around this, right? There are some women who can really be nasty to other women when women try and go for it. But to be honest with you, if you're around those type of women, I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in that kind of a circle. I want to be in a circle of women who support each other, who lift each other up, who celebrate each other's wins, even when you're if you're not maybe having any wins right now, still celebrating the women in your life that they are and supporting them going for it. That's the kind of communities I'm interested in being in. And I hope that's what you're interested in being in too. And quite frankly, part of getting out of this, part of getting out of some of these limiting beliefs might be shifting the people that you're hanging around. If everyone that you're hanging around is telling you that because you're a woman, you're responsible for everything in the house, that you're responsible for the birthday parties and the Christmas parties and the gifts and the medical and dental appointments and the laundry and the don't get me started, right? And I'm not suggesting everyone leaves their husbands, although I did just read the book When Women Were Dragons. That was fascinating in terms of the symbolism of women stepping into their power and stopping playing small, but I digress. But more, see if you can get into circles with other women who are doing what you're doing, other women entrepreneurs. Certainly, I have a program. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the chat and you can check it out. It involves one to one coaching with me and small group coaching. So you get to be with everyone as you go through the video trainings. But whatever it is, get into circles with other women who are also trying to do things, not just for themselves, but for the world. Like they're contributing, they're out there doing it. And in order to do that, you can't be last on the list. You cannot be last on the list and then have your work be helping others. Like it's just never going to work. One of the things in social work school, so I have my master's in social work, and one of the first things they taught us in every single class I took, even my statistics class, was you have to put yourself first. Because if you're not caring for yourself, you're not going to be like worth anything. It's not that you're not worth anything, but you're not going to be able to help anyone if you are not filling your own cup. And you're probably like, yeah, I know, but do you? Maybe you know, but there might be parts of you that don't know it yet. And that's why you have a priority list that has you at the very, very bottom and everyone else, even their wants over and above your needs. So if you're in this boat of going, yeah, I totally know that, but I don't practice it, there's limiting beliefs there. And it's time to sit with it and figure out what that's about. If you're interested in doing this work, you're welcome to look at my program, Ascend, the ADHD Women Entrepreneurs Mastery Program. We dive deep into these underlying obstacles. We also work on the common traits of ADHD, like difficulty focusing, distraction, procrastination, all that kind of good stuff, as well as building and growing a business. But that's one way to start to work on this. You also get 12 one-to-one sessions with me for a price that's lower than if you paid for them like outside the program. So I didn't plan on talking about Ascend today, but that's one way to do this. And if you're not quite ready for that kind of commitment because you're still struggling to put yourself first, take some time, grab a journal, notice the patterns that come up in your life from a place of curiosity, the times when you can't get yourself to work on your business because you don't have time, you're too busy, and sit with that. Maybe ask really good questions. What is it that you're so busy with? Are those all things only you can do? And if you're like, yep, then what leads you to think that? Start leaning in and getting curious about these patterns. Because if you want anything to change, that change has got to come from inside, especially if you struggle to value yourself and are consistently putting yourself last. All right, y'all. This is a fun one. It felt fast. I hope you got some benefit from it. If you did, I would love it if you leave a review. And in the show notes, there is a link, maybe two links to do different ways to leave reviews. Very low quality video. I literally shot it holding my phone, taping me doing it on my iPad. So very low quality video, but it's a way if you don't know how to leave a review that you could do it. I would love if you did that. And if this resonates with anyone, I would love it if you share. May you enjoy the rest of your day. May you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.